Ray Allen Canine. It's no secret that we love Ray Allen Canine equipment. We use their products every single day at both Van Ness Canine and at Torchlight. Their mission statement says it all: to be the world leader in quality innovation for professional canine equipment for police, military, Schutzen, and ring sport. Tend to exceed their customers' expectations and deliver on time every time at a fair price. We full heartedly believe that they've held true to that since it is our go to one stop shop for everything canine, not just police dogs, but for any working dog.
This episode is also brought to you by our good friends over at Dogtra, dogtra.com. It's the e-collars that Ted and I use. It's the e-collars most police dog guys use. Dogtra.com, e-collars, bark collars, ball launchers, one-stop shop for everything you need for your working dog, dogtra.com.
One of the other sponsors we're proud to have is HITS Canine Training Conference. It's the premier canine training seminar in the United States, packed to the brim with the world's best instructors covering important topics from admins to liability to detection work, all and tracking and everything in between. There's no better place to learn and no better place to network with other handlers, breeders, and trainers. HITS 2022 is being held in Orlando in August. So hit them up, hitscanine.net.
We're super happy to be represented by our good friends at Kinetic Dog Food. We've got great reviews from people all over the place. Ever since we joined up with them and partnered with them, their commitment to your dog's nutrition is top notch. KineticDogFood.com. Check them out.
Jim over at NC Canine out in North Carolina. It's the culmination of 13 years of experience in handling or training law enforcement canines. They use real world deployments to develop their training program and rely not only on their experience, but the current experience of the nation's canine handlers provide the best canine partner you can get. They provide pet training and police canine training based out of Four Oaks, North Carolina, and they serve the surrounding areas as well as nationally. Feel free to call them and learn more about their dog training program, police canine techniques, and methodologies.
We got a brand new sponsor, man, American Aluminum Accessories. My entire time in canine, and ever since I've been involved in the dogs, the kennel in the back of our cruisers has always been American Aluminum. Check them out. We're so happy to have them on here. EasyRiderOnline.com, EasyRiderOnline.com for everything you need from American Aluminum Accessories.
Speaking of kennels, once you get out of the car, you got to have somewhere to put them. So our friends up in Ohio at Horizon Structures make a one-stop shop for kennel. If you want a 2-dog kennel or if you want a 20-dog kennel, they got you covered. They get those things built and they drop it off at your house. All you got to have is a pad, electricity, and water, and you can put dogs in it that day. Horizon Structures can build you anything from mild to wild, and it is the one-stop shop, and you don't have to swing a single hammer. So hit them up, horizonstructures.com. All right, we are back. Working Dog Radio, broadcasting the bite. I am Ted Summers from a swampy, humid Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's definitely summertime. With me, as always, from Canton, Ohio, is Eric Stanbro. Eric, what's up?
Single purpose dope dog handler school started this week. And I have already shit canned the dog that I have for it. It's a dog that I provided. I just don't like her. She was training up really good, doing okay, you know. And I just was like, man, she just is more about the human than she was the hunt. I said, well, we'll see. We got away from my building. We got away from boxes. We got away from all that. And we started just letting her self-find hides and vehicles. And she was doing pretty good. I was like, okay, man, we'll keep going with her. And then the handler came up. He's green, brand new guy. He came up and started Monday. And at the same time, we're training up a green plus Malinois. I have another another insane shepherd that we're training up. And you can see the difference. Obviously, the lab is not going to be the Mal. However, even an idiot can see the difference. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, look, dude, I hate to say this. I'm going to fire this dog. Even though, you know, I provided the dog, I said, she's a super sweet dog, just not about the hunt work. You know, she's more about just, when I was imprinting her, I was using food and a lot of odor discrimination, scent discrimination. She was doing really well if you were there feeding her. But when it came time to range out and work, it just wasn't, there. So, I had trained up a dog and sold to our friend Scott down at Next Level Kennels. Dog named Joda, big lab, big, stocky, thick boy, and a real nice dog. And he still had him. And I said, I'll buy him back. So he's coming tomorrow. Scott's driving up from North Carolina with a few extra dogs for me to look at. And remember before I said I was clearing out my kennel and taking a break and not going to have any dogs from like when these dogs leave in mid-July until October.
Right.
I'm not sure that's the case. Because I've also
can't see me. If you're listening to this, I'm sitting here laughing.
Yeah, he's like, here's my surprise face. So I because now I'm also agreed to board a bunch of canine guys' dogs, and so lucky I live at a lake and I don't need to take a vacation in the summer because my house is a vacation. But so it's going along pretty good. That dog's coming tomorrow. He's already imprinted up. We're actually on 4 odors with him because the handler's a school resource guy. He's going to be in the school. They want weed and everything. So good kid, eager to learn everything. So we're just plugging away with that. My fall handler school, though, which is set to start very end of September, beginning of October. I think I'm going to cancel it. I'm kind of just over it. I don't want to do it. I think I'm stepping back and going to offer green and green plus dogs. Not so many pre-trained and not really any handler schools for a little while, only because I'm only able to do half days on the police side. The other half of the day have to be at the pet facility. So it's taking me longer to train the police dogs than I would like because I'm only doing from 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning till about 11:30, 12. And then I got to go over to the new place. So that to me is insufficient. So I'm but green plus, I can do that all day. That's no big deal. How about you?
I got pets. I got a full kennel. All of my runs are full. I have a baby German Shepherd, a baby Dutch Shepherd, and a baby Malinois in the kennel right now. I have
Where'd you get a Dutch Shepherd? Who owns fucking Dutch Shepherd puppies over there?
This dude from Tulsa who he owns a fishing boat down in Costa Rica, so he spends half the time here and half the time there. Which, believe me, I've already thought about it. But he has this fucking super nice little Dutch puppy that is from like the Costa Rican military or something fucking crazy. Like, of course it's Costa Rica. It's like the size of Tulsa County. But so his name's Mojito. But I have the Northern European Terror Squad. I got a Malinois, a Dutch Shepherd, and a little black German Shepherd, and they're all just shitheads. And I fucking hate puppies. They're cool little dogs, man. And the little black one, the little German Shepherd, she's a rock star. And all they want is she's just a pet. But she is like if we go in there to mop or I'll move around. I mean, she's going after my pant legs, tearing the mops up. I'm like, you sure? Like, she's pretty nice. So for those,
real quick, one thing I learned with the pet stuff, because I'm up to 12 trainers now that work for me. It's very good, Ted, to have people that will do puppies for you.
Oh, I know.
Just a hint.
Me. I get it. I know. I don't mind. I mean, they're fun because they're like kids, right? It's like my nieces. I get to play with them a little bit, and then I give them back to my sister, and I'm like, here you go. They're not my dogs. I don't care. So I don't have to deal with them. They stay at the kennel. So the other news, for those that don't know, if you've been to HRD seminars, or if you follow me, or Alicia or Eric,
or any conference that we've been
at, any conference you've been at, you have inevitably when it came in contact with CJ, which was Alicia's little 3-legged, one-eyed Brussels Griffon, like the 4-pound. She's been on the podcast twice. I think I picked her up and stuck her in front of the camera. CJ passed away the other day, and she just went to sleep, didn't wake up. So she was old. Alicia gave her a fantastic life. I mean, that dog went to more places than most fucking people. Oh, yeah. Like, that dog, Alicia, every time we would fly somewhere, I mean, that dog would sit in her lap, and I mean, so it's been a little rough for sure. We still have the other one, the other potato. He's the same breed. He's like a potato with legs. He's got all his parts though. So if you're listening and you were at any of the conferences or any of the HRDs, it's like, you inevitably met CJ or Bean or whatever her name was at the time. And she lived a long, long time. I think she was 14 years old. She was old. Yeah. And I mean, so yeah, Eric and I were talking about the other day. I mean, not having to make the choice is super rare.
Very
So
unselfish of her, honestly.
yeah, no shit. So, in that respect, I'm sorry for Alicia, and I'm sure everybody is too. But so not to be a fucking bummer. On that note, we're going to talk about dogs and strip clubs and fighting and stuff now. So, with that, well, our guest tonight, we've known for quite a while. We went out and trained with them a little bit out in North Carolina at one point. And but we have a handler from one of the SF groups, Travis Bobo. Travis, how are you?
Good. How about yourself, Ted?
Doing well, man. I'm glad to have you on. When we went out, when you were working at Griffin, we came out and we're like, fuck, we need to have you on the podcast. And it was just never like, it was always one of these things that like never, the stars never aligned. Shit, we almost ended the night because you're in the middle of a damn hurricane and we were worried you were going to lose electricity or internet or something. So
Yeah. It's just like you said, the stars never aligned. I was a busy man there. I was working 14 hours a day there. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir talking to you and Eric. You guys running your own company, you guys know. But before we get into that, I didn't know about Alicia's dog, so I want to offer my condolences to you and Alicia. I never got to see the dog, but I know it was a Facebook, Instagram all-star.
That's I mean, she'll appreciate that. It's been rough, and rightfully so. But inevitably, like occasionally those dogs come along, and she was one of them. And like, I mean, I didn't. It was always funny taking her to HRD seminars. You see these grizzled ass tattooed handlers, dudes, big motherfuckers with big gnarly dogs, and they're like, "Oh my god, let me see this thing." And the pictures that we have of CJ being held by dudes in fucking plate carriers, and like they're like, "What is this?" And they're like, "Oh, it's the new pocket. It's the pocket canine." You just and so, she's.
But if you wanted to, no one would have known also that she was there. Like
no,
you're like, why is the bag moving?
Yeah,
there's a dog in it. What is that?
The little suitcase thing.
And it looks like something you put water on overnight or fed. After midnight, and
or fucking one.
Yeah, man, it's awesome though. Awesome dog.
Yeah, she was great. So give us a little bit of your background, Travis. Like, where are you from? How did you get into Canine?
Originally.
And before we start, too, like, so part of this too, we're going to reference an episode we did a couple ago with Josh Davis. Because we mentioned you in that episode a couple of times. So for those, yeah, exactly. Eric's, for those that can't see what Eric's doing, you'll hear about it in a second. There's some stories that were referenced in there that we want to talk about. But so if you haven't listened to that one, listen to that one first, so that like this makes sense. So, but yeah, so give us your background a little bit. How we got into Canine, how we got into SF, the whole story.
Yeah, it was all happen chance, really. None of it was by plan. I know most guys that fall into the special operations community, they had that plan since they were a child. That's what they wanted to do. That's what they wanted to join the military to do. With me, really, I had no clue about the military whatsoever. 9/11 had just happened. I ended up graduating high school a little bit early, joined the military at 17. Being that I was 17, I had to have the parental's permission slip, essentially. So I got a dog's ass in my face. But so I wanted to join infantry. It's the only thing I knew. Of course, my dad signed off on it. My mom had a brother, my uncle, that was in. And I think he just fed her a bunch of embellished stories, scared her to death, so she wouldn't sign off on me being infantry. So went back to the recruiting office, told him I wanted to be combat arms, but it needed to be something I can convince my mom to sign off on. So artillery was the next best thing. I didn't know anything about artillery. I thought, TV shows, that was it. 3 jobs. You got the dude that loads the gun, the dude that aims the gun, the guy that pulls the cord. That's what I was thinking back then. So I went down the list, picked the one with the highest bonus. I ended up being multiple launch rocket system fire direction specialist. So the targeteer for the big long rockets that range like 300 kilometers. So took off, went to Fort Sill, Lawton, Oklahoma, your neck
Oh,
of the
it's
woods.
fucking hot down there. Whoa.
Yeah,
Woof.
yeah. First time in
Oh,
my
man.
life I ever physically saw a tornado, but it was so far away you didn't have to be scared of it.
But what is that? No. Look, tornado. Fuck, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
It's way over there.
That's what we do here. When they blow the tornado sirens, we all go outside and look. We don't go
Wow, I
inside.
probably would do that too.
But no. So you saw a tornado at Fort Sill.
Yeah. So but the job was cool. But it never changed. Once you learned the job, you knew the job regardless of your rank. You just got more responsibility, but it was always the same job. Did a couple deployments with conventional guys. Did a couple deployments out of the 82nd. I was attached to Ranger Battalion for both of them. And that's kind of where the light shone through. Living with those guys, working with those guys, that's what I dreamed the Army would be like. So I started trying to figure out my path. How do I get over there? Ranger Battalion wasn't accepting my MOS. So made some friends with the guys, tried to figure out the next best route. A lot of the guys that were there in Ranger Battalion, I was already 8 years in. I was a staff sergeant, convinced me that it probably wouldn't be a good idea for me to do it anyways. Being a transplant that far in, I would be treated by some corporal that has 5 or 6 deployments, and like you just got to eat it. And rightfully so. I would think that experience would kind of trump your rank in conventional side at that point. So SF was the next best thing. And at 8 years in, I was looking at either going in depth or getting out. So I kind of told myself, I'm going to go to selection. If I make it, I'll stay in, see where it brings me. If not, then I'm going to get out and I'll probably paint cars for a living. So I went, got selected, somehow made it through. Got assigned a third group. I got nothing I asked for. I wanted Spanish. I wanted to be in 11 Bravo. I wanted to go to Eglin Air Force Base. I wanted to travel South America. I got Urdu as my language. I got told I was staying on Fort Bragg and I was going to be a communication sergeant. So I got absolutely nothing I wanted.
Why even ask?
Yeah. The wish list is really just that. It's a wish list. It's needs of the force always. But it was a good thing. It was a blessing in disguise. I wanted to be with a group. I wanted to be with a group of guys that was getting after it. And at the time, third group was hot and heavy in the war in Afghanistan and basically everywhere else. They were starting to dip their toe back into Africa, getting work there. You name a hot spot, they were there. So did my time on the regular team, did a couple deployments with them, and inevitably, you guys probably know this with all the guests that you've had on, at some point in SF anyways, you have to go be an instructor. It's what we call SWIC time. I knew that was coming up and I wanted to dodge it. And I didn't know anything about dogs at all. Really didn't have a huge desire to be a dog handler. But the canine guys were always operational. They were always getting after it. I knew that much. And I could do it in lieu of going and being an instructor for 3 or 4 years. So threw my hat in the ring. It was during a time when a lot of the handlers, not all of them, but a lot of the handlers, at least in our group, were voluntold that they were going to go be handlers. So tell a sergeant major, tell a first sergeant, tell a commander that he has to send someone somewhere. He's probably not going to pick his best guys. So it was rare for someone to volunteer and say, this is where I want to be. So it was, you kind of got carte blanche. If you were one of those guys, they were going to let you in. So I got back off of deployment, my second deployment with the SF, and then literally walked right into the kennels and started working and fell in love with it. Absolutely fell in love with it. It was like a puzzle every single day. The psychology of working dogs intrigued me. Figuring out the drives of every dog and their personality, that from the outside in, it was all the same. It was another M4 on a shelf from the outside in. And then once you got in, you started seeing all the little eccentricities. And I think that's why I fell in love with it.
So when you went to selection, what boots did you wear?
Were they fancy Nike boots?
Actually, I think they were. Yeah, I do think I wore some Nikes. I remember having, at least in the course, not in selection, 2 sets of boots that I wore for 2 years. And one set was a set of Nikes, and the other set, I can't remember. There was something a little more durable for the woods, but I beat the soles off those
I don't know
boots.
what it is with you motherfuckers. When we had Josh on here, he said the same thing when he went over. He was wearing a fucking plate carrier. He had one there. He was in fucking Ranger Battalion. They all looked at him and they're like, "What are you wearing?" He's like, "I like it.
It's
What do you
comfortable.
want?"
Yeah,
It's
he's like,
comfortable. Like, what do you want from me, man? So
it had his nipple marks in it. He knew that plate
right.
carrier.
So during your selection, during Q course, there's a point in time where you guys have to do some like explain the process of what what I'm talking about. So however you want to address it, like you can address it.
Yeah. So I guess I'll kind of expound upon the story that Josh started. Not everyone has to go through this. I don't even know if it's part of the Q course anymore at all. It's changed so much. But when we went through, there was a portion of it called CLT. And don't ask me what it means. I don't know. But it was for guys that hadn't been through the first 2 levels of their NCO schools yet. So if you made it through selection, the very first thing you did was this CLT course, and it counted as your 2 levels of NCO school. It was all just culminated into one. But at some point during CLT, you had to fight. You either had to box, you had to wrestle, grapple, something, and they kind of split you up. I had some boxing experience prior to, and they paired me with a kid that, and I say kid because he was a kid. He was a 18 X-ray kid off the street, never been in a fight in his life, and he had heard that I'd boxed before, so he came up to me prior to the fight and asked me if we could take it easy, and I told him absolutely, yeah, of course. I'm not here to hurt anybody. We'll put on a show for the cadre, and we got to fight, we got to throw hands, but we'll touch and go. And he agreed, so we put our headgear on, put our gloves on, got out there, and like I threw a little light jab, and he come from the ground with that haymaker and knocked my whole headgear sideways on my face, and like I could see the stars, and it was game on at that point.
So
That's great.
Do you still talk to him?
No, I don't know. I don't even know if he made it through the course, because you kind of like split ways. Like if you're not in the same MOS, and like I don't remember ever seeing him again.
How long when you started, when you fixed your headgear, did he realize you think that he fucked up?
Probably the first time. So it wasn't a true boxing ring. Let me try to like paint the picture. It was hard packed ground with roots from the trees all around it. And our ring was a layer of like sandbags that had probably been there for 3 years, like stacked 3 high. So I think the first time his head bounced off one of those sandbags was probably
concrete, basically.
Yeah. And we had the instructor that was over it. His name was well, I won't say his name because I don't know if he's still out there, stacking bodies or not. But he was a Russian, and real thick accent Russian, like a guy that you would imagine being in SF. Like when I saw him, I was like, oh yeah, that's what I want to grow up to be like, is that guy, just hard as nails, scary to look at. He ended up like intervening and stopping the fight and pulling me off the kid. So, but that was it. So I heard that was the last time they ever did that.
Did the Russian know that you had a boxing background?
No, I don't think he did.
He was like, fuck, this is a dude.
Figured it
He's
out.
like, mental note, don't
learn today.
with that guy.
Yeah. And he would have the typical like Russian madhouse roid rage. He'd like walk into the classroom, and all of us would have drank the percolator of coffee already, or killed all the sugar, and he'd come in and like freak out and throw the percolator against the wall and scream about "where's the sugar," and then take off out of the room. And we knew we all fucked up, and we're all sitting there quiet and scared, looking at the ground.
Believe me, I have a really good friend here in Tulsa that's Russian, that works for the sheriff's office, and he's been here 20 something years and still like occasionally he's like, how do you say this? I'm like, bro, you've been here this long. It's the same thing. Like you go work out with him and he's like, you don't need music. Music is a crutch. I'm like, whatever. And, and he was like, in gym, we're not friends. I'm like, yeah, we are.
In
Shut
the
up.
gym, we're not friends.
That's what he said. No,
I need
no
you
shit.
to spot
He's like,
me, dude. What do you mean?
no,
we're not
he's like,
friends?
no music. Music is a crutch. And he was having us do this weird, I just call it the Russian triathlon, and I'm like, you motherfuckers used to play with tires and stuff when you were in Russia. I'm like,
we saw the movie. We saw Rocky.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, I mean, like you guys like used to play with rocks and tires and shit. And he's in his mid 50s. So, and I was like, especially when he actually has I think he still holds the record for the youngest Antarctic trans crossing, like by a person or something. He was down there in Antarctica. He was stationed in Antarctica anyway, but it's the same thing. Like he's one of those guys you look at him and you're like, same thing. So, you finish up Q course, and you do the deployments, and then we get to the dogs. So we're gonna take a break real quick. When we come back, we're gonna talk about the dogs and the process of the selection of that and the training. So we'll be back in just a second. Don't go anywhere. Don't fast forward through the commercials.
We have a long-standing relationship with the guys over at HITS Canine Training Conference. It's truly America's premier canine seminar. It is the largest. It is the best. They cover every important topic in the canine industry. Hundreds and hundreds of vendors, thousands of canine people there. Everybody in this industry is there. Ted and I will be teaching. HITS 2022 is being held in Orlando, Florida, August 16th to the 19th. Also, check out their website, hitscanine.net. They have other classes that they're putting out online, Zoom classes and all kinds of other things. They're offering in-person classes leading up to HITS 2022, Orlando, Florida, August 16th to the 19th. Check it out, hitscanine.net.
Everyone knows that I live on chicken nuggets and Coors Light. So that doesn't mean your dog should, though. Our friends at Kinetic make it a point to fuel working dogs, and they know that it can be tough and they need high quality food, unlike me, to give them energy and the nutrients that they require. I just subsist on air and Coors Light, but the dogs can't. They actually have to work. So for that, we asked Kinetic, and Kinetic has come up with a great balance of healthy meats and grains and is made specifically for working and sport dogs. They have a full line of foods and supplements available, and they've been working to perfect their line for thousands of dogs in hundreds of departments across the U.S. You can buy it locally online or at Tractor Supply, or you can get it at Chewy. So head over to their website, kineticdogfood.com, 513-615-6904. And get them on the socials at Kinetic Dog Food.
So probably the number one product I've ever advertised for or used that does what they say is Quickderm by VetCare. I have it at my house. I have it at the kennel. I have it at the fun house. I have it at the doggy daycare. I have my trainers have it at their house. It is unbelievable how it works. You guys have all heard Ted and I talk about it, how we've gotten tagged by dogs, or dogs do, if you're dealing with working dogs, weird stuff happens, right? Cuts how the hell that happened? Bites, scratches, all kinds of things that happen, especially if you're doing anything in the wooded area, they get tore up. The Quickderm by VetCare, it is no exaggeration. It is great. So once daily treatment for any skin condition or small wounds to help stop little issues from becoming big ones. Comes in sprays, ointments, or dressing. Quickderm is great at creating a protective barrier and promoting wound healing. The best thing, too, is they have a discount code. Get on their website, vetcare.us. That's vetcare.us. Put in the discount code 10WDR in capital letters, 10WDR for 10% off your first order.
These next guys have actually been on the show, and we instructed at the first Tripwire conference down in Florida. Jim O'Brien was a guest on the show, and he runs NC Canine, who has now come onto the show as a sponsor. Jim's been around for quite a long time, about 13-ish years, with experience handling and training law enforcement canines. He uses real-world deployments to develop training program and not rely only on their experience, but current experiences from most of their national canine teams and handlers to provide the best canine partner that you guys can and purchase. They provide pet training and police canine services based out of 4 Oaks, North Carolina, and they serve the surrounding areas. Feel free to give Jim a call, a text, carrier pigeon, however you want to get a hold of him, to talk to him about police canine training or pets and techniques and methodologies. So hit him up at 919-438-0141 or J O'Brien. That's JOBRIEN at NC letter K number 9.us. Check the show notes. We'll put it there. All right, we're back. Travis Bobo, talking about boxing in the woods. So that was one of the stories I wanted to. When I heard that, I was like, "Fuck, I got to ask him about this." No, Josh was
Hey,
like, no.
Josh started it. So
No, Josh started, and Josh was like, "I've seen that dude stroke so many people." I'm like, "Really? Really?" I was like, "I can see that." Because you and I had a conversation a couple of times, and I was mentioning something about some dude in Arizona. I don't remember where this guy's from, but you're like, "I'll take that bet." I'm like, I was like, "Oh, okay." Well, I was like, fair enough. So you do a couple deployments with the guys, and then you go into Canine, and you asked to go, right? You weren't voluntold. You volunteered.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah, myself and actually another guy from the same company. Both of us went over at the same time.
So when you ask to go over, where you're like unit guy, where your commander's like, you're sure? Like, is this what you want to do? You're like, well, that's that, or I got to instruct. So I mean, I can play with dogs, or I can play with idiots. Which one do you want me to do? So
yeah, it was kind of looked at least at the time, it was kind of looked at as a career killer. Like it didn't fall anywhere in the career path. So if you were trying to chase rank, you were kind of stepping on your own toe there, which I didn't care. I never cared about chasing rank. I just wanted to go get after it. So and that was kind of the plan. Was in my head was, cool, I'm going to have this dog, but I'll be able to leave it in a kennel and still go out on mission, or I'm bringing it with me, but his ass is going to stay in the truck and I still get to go run and gun, in my head. And then as soon as I landed in the kennel, it all changed. Like my eyes opened up a little bit.
So talk about that. Like the first day you go in, like, what's that like? You're like, oh, okay, I'm here. Where's my dog?
Yeah, well, no, I kind of got a little bit of a brief in prior to. I was deployed with another handler from the same group. So of course I'm pimping him for questions all the time we're deployed, and he's giving me the lay of the life, the daily lay of the life, that 60% of it you're dealing with dog slobber and rocks in your pocket and picking up poop. And I was like, well, that's cool. That's a fair trade for not being on an instructor podium every day. But first week in was pretty intimidating, with zero dog experience at all. Of course, I'm walking down the gauntlet of every kennel in the world, every working kennel in the world, and you've got Malinois trying to eat you through the cages. And
how can he jump that high? Like how is that possible?
Yeah, and it looks like the Sabbath from Happy Tail. Like there's blood and spit and shit everywhere. And I've got like an 80-pound Mal that's been there for 12 years trying to eat me as I'm trying to feed him, because he ain't listening to a word I say, because my voice tone inflection's off. And of course, like I'm cowering, shoulders forward, and they're reading all this. So yeah, it was pretty intimidating that first week. And then I remember, and you guys had Mr. Putnam on, Roy Putnam. He was my trainer. And I don't know if he did this on purpose. And if he did, kudos to him. But he put me on one of the oldest strong-willed dogs we had at the time. And the dog's long retired now. I don't even know if he's still around. His name was Blue. He was one of the last German Shepherds in group altogether, like 13 years old, and he could just read a weak handler. And being new, hadn't even been to school yet. So they're out there, telling me what to say to get the dog to listen to me. And he's just standing there like a rock the entire time. I'm not listening. I'm like, man, I'm making a mistake. I'm in the wrong place. This is going to be terrible. And then I had to irrigate his ears, and like he shook his head and flung a big old yeast ball in my mouth. And like, this is all we won. And I'm like, this is great. And then like suppressing anal glands, like everything to like try to get me out of the kennels, I think, to see if I really wanted to be there.
Yeah. He's like, hey, you got to jack him off so he doesn't get coxliosis. That was
exactly.
That was an old school trick they used to do. So I have a question
I
for you.
probably would have done it.
No, of course. Yeah, you would have.
It's
you
better than instructing.
Yeah, we had a guy that was in my first class that I was a handler at. He's still a handler now, and his dog was a douche. And he wouldn't spit a ball out, and the trainer told him he had to blow in his ear to get him to drop the ball. And the fucker did it and almost got his face completely ripped off. It was great. Hi, Mike. Hope you're doing okay. So, but back up real quick to the SWIC stuff you have to do. What are some of the best stories you've heard of dudes getting out of it or trying to get out of it? Like, what gigs have guys taken to just not be an instructor?
There's one specifically that comes to mind. A good buddy of mine. We did a couple deployments together. He was coming up on his time and jumped on the bandwagon to be on the test committee for test parachutes on Fort Bragg.
Oh,
yeah, that was my reaction.
no.
What the fuck? I'm gonna be a test pilot for parachutes rather than instruct. Is it that bad? I mean,
I don't know.
You're like, I don't know.
never
I
made
wouldn't play with.
yeah.
You're like, I don't know. I wouldn't play with dogs, or I jumped out of planes with parachutes. It might not work.
No, actually, because Ted, you know what I did after I got out, which was basically volunteer to go to SWIC on a civilian level, where it was Groundhog Day and I'm on the podium every day there. So yeah, absolutely, it was that bad.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So is that when you do that, when you have to, if you just go along with the program and do the SWIC stuff, is that going over to conventional units and teaching them a little bit, or is it, who are you training there that it's so bad?
You're typically you're going to one of the schoolhouse committees. So you're going to instruct the future Green Berets, the Green Berets that are in the pipeline right now, the soon to be Green Berets, I should say. So you're either going to be on the 18 Echo committee or the 18 Bravo committee. There are some other positions, like free fall instructor. You're instructing guys that are already in at that point. Dive instructor, you're instructing guys that are already in at that point. There's a few gigs outside of that, but typically, 90% of the guys, you're going into the Q course somewhere. And you're probably being assigned as an instructor in your MOS.
Yeah. As the junior dude at that, you show up and they're like, yeah, okay. Get out here and do this shit bottom training shit that we don't want to do. Cause
exactly.
So when you go, and I don't know if this is true or if this is a thing yet. So you volunteer to go to the kennel, and military units, especially any kind of special warfare units that volunteer their people, it's always watered down program. It always really affects. Now you'll get occasionally a guy who's voluntold who goes there and just makes the best of it and does a really good job at what it is. But when I worked for Cobra on the West Coast, right prior to me coming, the guys that were coming back, a lot of them, and the guys who were just leaving were voluntold and struggled. And it was not, the program wasn't all that great. The guys, I got lucky. The two guys I had were amazing, good team guys, good handlers, good dudes. There was a group that some of the other guys were training, same thing. They kind of changed that program around a little bit. But prior to that, they were putting dregs that they didn't want in other units, over there. Is it an MOS yet, or will it ever be? Do you ever see it being an MOS?
No, I don't ever see it being an MOS, not an SF. They are, at least they were in the process. I don't know if it's taken hold yet, because it's been a few years since I've been in, and I still stay in touch with some of the guys, but I don't ask questions. We don't talk shop most of the time, but they are supposed to be getting a special identifier, an MOS identifier, that goes on that shows that yes, we're Canine certified, so that they can stay. It stays within the promotion system or along that ladder that they're chasing at that point. So that it's not a career killer. As far as I'm tracking, it is still just a 3-year stint. which if you ask me, that it kind of sucks, because as a handler or a trainer, that's about the time you start catching your stride. That's about the time shit starts clicking, and you're like, oh, that change of behavior, that, by that time you've had your hand on enough dogs that stuff starts to make sense. Stuff that Mr. Putnam told me week one that I didn't understand till 3 years later, or Mr. Licklider told me, week two, that I'm just now understanding half a year later. And it's, so I don't know that that'll ever work out. I don't know that they'll ever have a full-time position. I think that's kind of where they need to go, because if guys want to be there, just like you said, they're going to perform better. It's kind of where their passion is. And then you've got that continuity that builds on. So you're not getting a good guy that finally understands it, and then they're yanking the rug out from under him and sending him back to a team.
Well, and so here's the thing is, I can kind of understand, I guess, a little bit where a 3-year thing would be okay. When we were deploying and going to war all the time, we had this 20 years or whatever it was of guys that were in there going to war, deploying, learning some OJT stuff. Now the problem with a 3-year is you have a guy who may or may not, really get to do a lot of stuff. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, depending on, what group he's in, where he's at. And then at 3 years, he's like, I really, like, I'm still behind here. Like, I didn't really, or I'm just not even hitting a stride. Like, I don't know. I just think,
or even worse, you got the guys that have the false sense of where they are, just because they were a handler in group for 3 years, but yet their experience doesn't match where their bravado is. I think that's even more dangerous.
Yeah.
I've seen that quite a bit. You made a comment earlier. You're like, man, the fucking canine guys were always doing shit, and they're always, and that's kind of like, and Eric, you mentioned it, and both of you kind of mentioned it. So, like, those guys, canine, for whatever reason, well, I know why, but I mean, in law enforcement and military, like, anytime shit gets funky, like, they're always like, where's the dog? And they're disproportionately putting the highest instance of use of force of any specialized job. And inevitably, like, that's why most of the time when I talk to dual purpose handlers, they wanted to become a dual purpose handler in law enforcement, because those are the guys catching bad guys.
It's
like,
action, that is for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and they're like, I want to go catch fucking bad guys. Yeah, I want to find drugs too, whatever, fine. They're like, yeah, no, I've talked to guys and they're like, fuck, we have a drug unit for that. I don't care about that shit. And they're like, I want to go catch fucking bad guys. I'm like, and I want a dog do it. And I want to go catch bad guys. And every time that dog comes out, there is a high chance that in your situation, which we'll talk about a little bit, like, you're going to find something, or you're going to find somebody. And so it kind of makes sense, like, right. And, that tempo, maintaining that tempo, there's a lot of experience that can happen in a short amount of time. Like Eric says, when you're deploying a whole lot, but then if you're not, then, I mean, Eric tells a story, and he tells it all the time. Like, when we stand up in front of HRD guys, we're like, Eric worked for Cobra with the NSW program. And, people are like, oh God, fucking SEAL dogs, whatever. They're like, no, they're not any better than your dogs. Like, and I mean, my guys get more bites than SEALs do. And, which we'll talk about yours in a second. I mean, you didn't ever have a live bite, unfortunately. But, I mean, our guys bite people all the fucking time. So, so speaking of dogs, so you go to the kennel, Putnam is giving you literally every shithead in there. And so what was your first dog?
So my first dog, I went to VOK. So every handler, you kind of do your time at the kennel for a month or two, and it's really just to fill the handler out. To know if they want to be a handler. Do you want to deal with this dog shit every day? Literally. You want to, we trained every single day, all day long. It wasn't like being on a regular team where you kind of show up, you drink the coffee, you hang out, and then you kind of wait for everyone to show up, and then you go do some work and you train, and you're at home 4 o'clock in the afternoon cutting the grass. And that was typical team life, unless you were training up for something specific. In the kennel, we worked all day, every day. There was something to do. It never stopped. So they did that. They felt me out, and it was my time to go to VOK. So myself and the other guy that just got there, we took off into the OK. And we were number one in the selection queue. They kind of do a round robin that kind of rotates with groups. I don't know if they still do, on who gets first pick, who gets last pick, and the trainers that get together and they'll trade with each other because every kennel's got their personality, a dog they like. And I got a dog named Donder, and it was actually Donder 2. She was the second Donder in our kennel. Big, long, French bred Malinois, like the epitome of what a Malinois should look like, at least what I thought, blonde with the full black mask. And I was so ignorant at the time, I had no idea that I just got a Cadillac. She was a push button robot. And, it was good and bad. It was good because I didn't have to work hard. I could say something fucked up. She knew what to do. She was just all around a phenomenal dog. But because of that experience, every other dog I got my hands on afterwards, I was always comparing to her. So we leave, we get back from VOK, make it back to the kennel. And I get my first deployment. And I deployed with the unit. We were on standby for anything that popped off in Africa. So we were actually stationed in Germany with an 8-hour response time to anywhere in Africa at the time. So we had a lot of training on our hand. We were doing some training in the shoot house, and I had her on a 30-foot and threw a tennis ball around a corner. I was rewarding her, or actually marked, dropped the tennis ball. It bounced around the corner, around a threshold I couldn't see, and it bounced out a window, second or third story window. By the time I round the corner, all I see is ass going out the window, and she hits the ground, breaks all the tarsals in one of her front paws. I haul ass down the flight of stairs, get down there, and she's standing up, wagging her tail, tennis ball in her mouth, holding her paw up. So end up having to ship her back to the States, and got one of our veteran dogs that was actually on the queue to retire sent over to me, and ended up doing 2 deployments with that dog. So I had my rock star dog, and I never really got to use her live. Like I broke her in training, and she ended up getting med retired out because they had to put a plate in her, but she got retired out to a vet. She's in a good home.
That really sucks, man. Really sucks. We at my old unit, we have a big tower that we use. It's 3 stories. Second story has a window. We had a dog launch out the window one time, and I'm standing down below, and he comes and lands flat down on his stomach. Gets up, looks at me. He's coming to me. We had another guy in a bite suit to change out decoys. Starts yelling. The dog turns, goes over and bites him. Nothing wrong with him. Absolutely nothing wrong with him. I was like freaking out. Rushed him to the vet. They're like, yeah, he's cool, man. He's good. I'm like, wow. It's insane. And if she lands 2 centimeters differently, it might be the exact same thing. My second dog, Willie, I caught him on the leash as he was going out a 3rd story window after a dude who was hanging and dropped, and right in front of the cops, whap, on the ground right in front of him. And I caught Willie just as he was going out the window. So it's fucking dogs, man.
That fucking happens. I mean, at Janet, at her courses, they do a deal where they send the dog up a tower. And I probably shouldn't talk about that in case somebody show up, because it's kind of a surprise scenario. Anyway, yeah, it happens.
Yeah, dogs do shit happen.
Evan told me some stories about that kind of shit too. So anyway, you deploy, and unfortunately, Donder, you don't get to deploy with. You deploy to Africa with second dog.
Yeah, Jasmine. So Jasmine had kind of been passed around the kennel. She's had a lot of handlers underneath her. Really, really solid dog. Needed a strong handler though. She would check you, not aggressively. She would just ignore you if you weren't a strong handler. And lo and behold, we actually get the call to respond into Africa. None of us were expecting it. None of us were expecting anything serious enough to pop off. But we get the call, so we ended up going into South Sudan during the civil war that kicked off in. Don't quote me, I think it was 2016. The words we got was a full-on force-on-force, tank-on-tank war. It was an unsecure airfield. and there was about 40 of us total landing on an unsecure airstrip. So we fly in, map the earth, ramp down, we land, all of us, of course, you know, adrenaline through the roof right now. I'm monkey-tailed into the aircraft because I'm not getting in the truck with the dog. I'd rather be on the ground with the dog and step out where the first one's out. And I got her tethered to my belt, rifle up. I'm walking across the airfield and I feel my tether start dragging. So, of course, I yank on it, fooey her, thinking that, you know, she's sniffing piss or something. I look back and she's taking a shit right in the middle of the airfield. Like, as soon as we get off, the gun trucks are passing by me, laughing at me, pointing. And lucky for us, though, and we weren't told, lucky for us, though, right before landing, they had called a 48-hour ceasefire so that they could do peace talks. So they were there waving to us and like happy to see us. And so it was a good
sides.
thing. But
Hey, hello.
Oh man. So you get into South Sudan. When you come back, well, I mean, first of all, how did what was your loadout different for being canine handler versus your first couple deployments as just a normal fucking team guy? Obviously, you have dog shit, but what was different about some of the loadout stuff?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the loadout was different. I'm carrying a lot more gear now. Well, I don't want to say a lot more gear. I'm carrying different gear. I was a combo guy before. I was a SF combo guy, so I always had batteries and antennas. And guys are going to break every wire on their kit, and they're going to come to me, and I'm having to fix it. Or some commander can't get communications, and I got to go tweak and play,
a bunch of hangers. You're fucking undoing wire hangers and tying shit up.
My can of Cheese Whiz and my combat thing of crackers loaded up. I can push my glasses up. So instead of all that, I had a muzzle and a tennis ball and a Kong. But really, it wasn't a whole lot different kit wise, other than the obvious stuff that most canine handlers have. I got my emergency muzzle in my pocket. Everyone knows where it is in case I get put down. They know where to grab it, put it on the dog. In case the dog's freaked out. My 30, my 6, plenty of rewards on me. So, and we typically went with tennis balls because they were light, they were easy to carry. Like I know there's a big controversy if they wear dog's teeth down in, but carry a Kong around in combat for 15 days and you're going to start carrying a tennis ball, I promise you. But the back end side is where it really mattered, making sure that, and it's funny that you bring this up because it happened on this mission, making sure that you have enough food for the dog, put away on a pallet or put away in a truck somewhere to support you for the duration that you're going to be there. We ended up flying into Djibouti first. The plane that we were supposed to get on was much larger than the plane we ended up getting on. So they downsized us. A couple pallets got left behind. And it so happened to be the pallet that had my dog food on it. So we're in South Sudan. It's supposed to be a touch and go. We're supposed to land, grab the Americans that are NGOs on the ground, get them out of there. We ended up securing the embassy for, I don't remember, it was 3 or 4 days until conventional guys got in. So I was having to scrounge off like the local economy and send runners out to get whatever dog food they had in South Sudan and like go to the kitchen and like grab raw food to feed my dog. So like there's definitely some improvising there.
That causes some shit problems. We have some diarrhea issues going on.
Yeah, well, that and I won't say who it was. You guys can probably look it up. The ambassador to South Sudan, the U.S. ambassador to South Sudan, loved dogs. She was a dog mom. One of those types of people. So like every time my back was turned, she was feeding my dog bacon. That in combination. I
would love to have been your dog.
Yes, but that it actually kind of worked out because it got me into a couple of the meetings that she was having with other people that like my commander wasn't even invited to. So like I'd come back out and debrief him on what was happening. So it worked out.
That's hilarious. So, were you a hip lead guy?
It depended on the situation. It really did. Like in a situation like that where there was a very real possibility of me needing to operate that rifle, yeah, I did. Typically, no. Typically, I was on a 6 or a 30, and hopefully get the opportunity to talk about that, about, my thoughts on a leash and combat and some of those situations. But typically I was on a 6 or a 30.
Well, this is a perfect time to take a break, and we'll get into that because Ted and I talk about that ad nauseum at our conferences because it's such a big deal. But what I want to get into, if we can, on working on shooting with your dog on that hip, on that 6, on whatever, because guys don't do it. In law enforcement, they just don't. I'm telling you, do not do it. And I think they think I'm good. I'll just be able to get, and they don't understand the dynamics of a moving dog and things that are going on. And a lot of these guys can barely fucking pass certification as it is with a regular pistol course. They think they're going to be able to do it with a dog on his sweet ass, cool bungee hip lead. So I want to go ahead and take a break, and we get back. We'll get into that operational stuff with Travis. Be right back. All right, guys, this episode has been brought to you by great sponsors of ours. Please don't skip through this. Take a listen to them. One of our oldest sponsors and great friends of ours are the people down at Highland Canine down in North Carolina. I really like them. We see them at all the conferences. I know a lot of people have been to their school for dog trainers. They've been on the podcast. Highland Canine, they're a full service canine and pet dog training business where they can train you to be a trainer. They can get you a dog. They have handler classes. They have supervisor classes. They have trainers courses for just LE. They have them for anybody who wants to be in the dog business, be a dog trainer of any kind. Check them out. Their website is tacticalpolicecaninetraining.com, tacticalpolicecaninetraining.com. If you are smart, you'll go down there in the winter. It is North Carolina. It is warm. You get to work dogs. It's no joke school, guys. You're not going down there for a month and rushing through it. They're actually trying to make you real deal dog trainers. Tacticalpolicecaninetraining.com.
Next is a sponsor that's been with us for quite a while, Dogtra. I love Dogtra stuff, and they continually keep bringing out new products. One of the things that I've been using a lot lately is the new Tone Box. If you're a pet trainer or if you train a lot of police officers, and I harp at my guys all the time about timing, and this thing literally pairs to the remote, and when you're using the remote, whether you're using Nick, constant, or vibrate, it makes a noise, so you can get the timing down 100% consistent. And so I can demonstrate how to do an out with an e-collar immediately, quickly, and it is so effective that I can't believe that it took me forever to figure it out to get that. They've also got these new comfort feather, like titanium things that go on the collars that are fantastic for making sure we got contact. It actually has 6 points, and this comes in 2 sizes, and it's a titanium feather thing. They're awesome. They got comfort contact points for the bark collars, the YS600. One of my favorite things. I have about 50 of them at the kennel, and it is dead silent. And I put them on all the pet dogs, and I can leave them on because they have the comfort contact points, and they're fantastic. All this stuff you can get at dogtra.com. And if you use the discount code WDR10, you get 10% off a single item over $200. So that covers the ball trainer. That covers the 1900 Ask Hands Free, which is my personal favorite for all the big dogs. It covers the 2-dog system, the 202C, which I use for the 2-dog pet guys, and fantastic. So dogtra.com, or go to @DogtraOfficial on all the socials. That's Facebook, Instagram, all those places. So hit them up, dogtra.com.
Guys, I don't even shop any other sites when I'm looking for everything for dogs. Our one-stop shop for anything pet dog training and police dog training, hunt dog training, anything you need, you can find at rayallen.com. They have been doing it forever. We have a great relationship with them. Again, they're at all the conferences. You can stop up and talk to them. They have more stuff there than any place. rayallen.com. They are amazing. We have a great, really, really good relationship with those guys. Like I said, I get on their website. I do not look anywhere else. I just get on Ray Allen. Why should I? Fill up my cart, pay it, boom, shipping. Here we go. Everything's coming. rayallen.com. And guess what? We do have a discount code for them. Working Dog Radio for 10% off. It's all one, Working Dog Radio, and it's all caps. Check them out, rayallen.com.
I'm not too ashamed to admit that I used our own discount code to buy stuff for the kennel. We have American Aluminum next. They're a new sponsor for moving forward. They have been around for quite a while. They manufacture a wide variety of products, from the high quality cam lockers and toolboxes to a huge line of products designed to meet the ever-changing needs of law enforcement community. Back in 1992, due to the demand for safe, secure transport for a nearby law enforcement department's canine, they introduced the very first Easy Rider canine. They have continuously grown and expanded products, catering to the needs and wants of the valued customers and a high-profile clientele. Over the years, as the needs have changed, they have evolved and expanded their products to include inmate transport systems, canine training aids, canine inserts, contraband, containment, and animal control systems, just to name a couple of things. So you can find them at easyrideronline.com. That is Easy Echo Zulu Rider Online.com. You can find them on the socials at American Aluminum Accessories, and then you can hit them up toll free 1-800-277-0869. You don't have to worry about writing all that down. We're going to put it in the show notes. So just scroll down to the bottom, write it down, click the link, takes you straight there onto your phone.
Our first sponsor we ever had, he's our ride or die. He's been with us since the beginning, is Arno over at ALM Canine Equipment. His stuff is so good. Ted, gets suits. Ted's suit, he's had it for a long time. Arno's fixed it. He's taken a million bites on it. It still holds up. The thing's amazing. I've got a suit from him. I love it. Use it all the time. But the main thing that I really love about Arno is his hidden sleeves are ridiculously amazing. They are the best. And his tugs. I usually buy tugs from Arno by the box load. He'll send me a whole bunch of them. I hand them out to the handlers, new handlers when they come in, experienced handlers. They last for a long time. They're amazing. The craft work is great. Arno's doing all the sewing there. He's got pre-made suits. He can do custom-made suits, everything you need out there. And he's out there in sunny Las Vegas. Get on his website, check him out, almcanineequipment.com, almcanineequipment.com. Discount code WD Radio, all caps, 10% off your first order. Check them out. All right, everybody, we are back. Working Dog Radio, broadcasting the bite. Great conversation with our buddy Travis Bobo. So we left off, if you guys remember, 5-8 minutes ago, talking about his gear loadout, different things that he used, which I'm sure at least placement things probably changed as you were really getting used to it based on, when you're going through training, when you hit South Sudan, then after that, all your other missions and everything, what's important, what isn't important. But what we say, and Ted, I first heard this from Ted at HRD, and I use it with every canine guy, every pet owner, everybody. Leashes are so important. There's cave paintings of them.
Oh, yeah.
That's how long they've been around. So
I do say that.
You are not a failure to go back to your leash or to use your leash at all times. So talk about that from a person who's using a dog in different countries, in combat, in whatever things, about your impressions of leash, your opinion, and how you end up working those.
Yeah. So I'm going to start this off first by saying how phenomenal of a trainer Roy Putnam is. And again, that it kind of goes back to what I was saying about my first dog. I didn't realize how lucky I was until later on down the road. I didn't realize that I had the dog whisperer I was working and learning from on a daily basis all day long, every day, and until I had stepped away and got to see it in other lights and other kennels and other trainers. Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. But the only disagreement I think we've ever had is a leash in combat while working a bomb dog, where you have a very real possibility of finding a bomb, and your average size bomb is 40 pounds. And this, again, is just my thoughts from my experience. Training, yeah, absolutely. Have that leash on. How else are you going to correct the dog? How else are you going to fine tune that dog and chisel that dog into what you need it to be if you don't have that immediate response and that timing? And you're only going to get that timing from a leash. You can talk about e-collars all you want, but you can miss that. You can miss the opportunity. You may not see something. You may not feel what you need to feel that you can on a leash. Training, yeah, absolutely. But my last deployment with the dog, we were literally finding bombs on a daily basis that were live. They were live, they were triggered, they were ready to go. The entire country was laced, and your average size bomb was 40 pounds.
Whew.
And if we're running, an ammonium nitrate 40 pounds, and if you're running on a 30-foot leash and that dog triggers that bomb, and you don't know what the trigger is going to be. You don't know if it's emotion. You don't know if it's a PIR. You don't know if it's a pressure plate. You don't know if it's got a tilt switch in it. You just don't know what it is. And if that dog sets that bomb off and you're only 30 feet away, what was the point of me having the dog out there in the first place? Yeah, the dog's going to find it, but if the dog triggers it, I'm a goner anyway. So yeah, I guess I did my job and everyone behind me safe, but I'm vapor right now. So there's a time and a place to work a dog off leash. And that would be the time and the place, undoubtedly, in my mind, finding as many bombs as we did. So yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts on it. And I think Roy was about ready to kick me out of the kennel when I got back from Syria, and I was voicing that so strongly. And of course, it starts like every conversation with every trainer and handler ever does. It starts as tactfully as it possibly can, and then escalates probably to a point that it probably shouldn't have been. Still, like I said, the most respect for that man is anyone can have. But that was probably our only disagreement we ever have. And then later on, like grown-ups, we sat down, talked about it, and he saw it from my point of view, and I saw it from his point of view. And I think it was really just more of a misunderstanding than it was anything else, where I was trying to work a dog or work dogs and start incorporating it into training back at Bragg, and he basically gave me the same point of view that I just gave you guys. Like, how do you correct it during training? If this is training, you need to have a way to correct it. So
Leashes, the length and style of leashes that guys use often changes, like especially in law enforcement, because guys can be handlers for a long time. So in Syria, for example, weather, environment, sand, or whatever it is that you're dealing with, gloves, no gloves, are you a leather, a nylon, a synthetic on a 30 and a 6? Where do you look at?
This was my thought, and this is what I used. I used tubular nylon, and I used cheap, and I typically tied I just tied a knot. I tied an inline bowline into a hasp, used tubular nylon, and I used regular gloves on it, as thin as I possibly could, so I could still feel the leash. I've got that. I can work the brakes without giving an inadvertent correction. But the leash is so cheap, I can pull it off a spool. And if I need to cut that leash, I'm not cutting a $200 leash in half right now. I'm cutting a piece of tubular nylon to get away from it and let that dog come back out to me. That was just my thoughts. Maybe not the most ergonomically sound thing, but for the purposes that I used it for, that was my determination. That was my thought process on it. We were working a lot in congested buildings. So sending that dog in I made a couple 60s to let the dog be able to work, just so I still had some
from the
type
truck
of control.
You're back in the truck.
Yeah, two buildings deep and using a camera.
Right.
But it didn't matter how long the leash was. She was wrapping around chairs. She was knocking, dragging couches and coffee tables around, knocking pillows over. And half of the IEDs we were running across were PIR. They were, infrared sensor. So you didn't know what you could move, what you couldn't move. And that leash was just wrapping around it turned into a shit show, essentially. Mm-hmm. So eventually I ended up impromptu, teaching my dog directionals in the middle of the theater we were in, enough that she could do the job. It wasn't clean, it wasn't pretty, it wasn't a Pat Nolan gun dog by any means, but it got the job done.
I was just thinking, was it as clean as Pat's?
Yeah, right. You talk shit right now. What about your 6 foot? What was your kind of the same? You're just making up the 6 foot that way too?
Again, that kind of depends. So, we all got issued our nice, pretty leathers that we took care of. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times I like something I could just ball up and throw in my pocket. So a lot of times I'd cut a nylon for operational uses. Training, I always like that heavy leather. You got a little bit more. You got a little bit more give, or not give. You got a little bit more oomph out of it when you needed it.
Yeah, good. You can feel it. It's the texture's right. You can
Yep.
manipulate a lot easier.
You can break it right. You can do everything you needed to with it. You knew when it was there. You knew where you were holding. You never really know on the nylon unless you're putting stitches in it to kind of let you know you're getting to the end of that thing.
Yeah. So you know when we talked to Josh, you know, he didn't really even have a story where like, oh man, you know, I'm really glad the dog was there. Like, fuck, had he not been there, shit would have happened. And he mentioned that you guys ran across something because you guys were in the same area in the same theater at the same time, and you ran across something that wasn't normal, and you sent it down to him so that he can imprint it on in the field, which is what you ended up doing as well. But you kind of talk a little bit about like how you came across it, and then I want to know, because did you guys have EOD with you? Did you guys have the Navy kids with you, or so? What did they say?
Yeah. So the unit that I was with an SMU. I wasn't a patch wearing member of the SMU that I was there with. So any guys listening that know better, I'm not saying I was an SMU guy. I was there for the trip. It was kind of a task force, hodgepodge, guys put together from all over the special operations community. The EOD guy that I had with me, he was a DevGru EOD guy. We worked hand in hand. We actually lived together. We lived in the same little 2-man chew. So we were always together. And you know, we worked real well as a team together. We'd have a conversation before every single clear we did about where I was going to start, where he was going to start, where I was going to make my wind call, how we were going to cross clear, what the signals were going to be, so on and so forth. But kind of alluding to what you're asking about, we were regularly coming across a deck cord that was it was in a red casing. It looked a lot like a civilian deck cord. For some of the guys that worked bomb dogs before, you've probably seen it. You probably trained on it before. And to my assumption, that's what it was. It was, you know, a Patton or RDX mix that would be standard across the board. And it wasn't just me. There was a Ranger handler that was on the same little camp that I was on, and both of us were finding it. And neither one of our dogs were hitting on that in particular, because a lot of times we'd find an IED that would be an ammonium nitrate base. And then we'd bring it back. We'd disarm it. We'd bring it back. We'd use it for training, just to make sure our dogs were hitting on it. If that's what's in the field right now, I just want to make sure. And of course, it's dirty, so we're not overly training on it. We're not trying to imprint our dogs on half the dirty shit that's inside this thing. But we just want to, you know, we want to warm and fuzzy that our dog's actually hitting on what it needs to be hitting on. Well, the most exposed thing there, you know, being as anthropomorphic as I can be, is that RDX hanging out the top of it, that deck cord hanging out the top or out the side of the IED or whatever it was at the time, and none of our dogs were hitting on it. So yeah, we sent a sample back to the EAC lab. We never got anything back, never heard anything back, but we ended up imprinting our dogs on it live in the field, and I know my success rate went up from there. I know the Ranger that was there with me, his success rate went up from there too.
Yeah, somebody bought truckloads of that shit from somewhere.
Yeah. So what did the EOD guy say? I mean, he saw it. He was like, "Do you think it was?" He was like, "It's deck cord." Like,
yeah. That was everyone
tasted it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's fucking Navy guys. They'll eat it. Yeah. So that's super crazy. And you know, we talked about it earlier. You never, thankfully, you said thankfully, but talk about you never had a live apprehension in the field.
Yeah, no, I just I never had that situation, honestly. And if, again, here's my thoughts. If me as an SF guy has to turn my dog loose on somebody, we're down to our Swiss Army knives at that point. The way I'm thinking about it, we're gunned up, ready for a fight. And I've got enough dudes around me that, you know, we treated our dogs just like I treat a rifle. If I'm sending my dog on you, you're a dead man, essentially. I'm not using my dog as apprehension like law enforcement does. That's not even in our row. It's a kill or capture. You're gonna die if I get the choice. I'm not gonna send my dog. I'm gonna send a rifle round at you. There was one instance that I actually sent my dog on somebody, and the guy he was the fastest kid alive.
He's running for the Syrian national team in Tokyo right now.
Yeah, and he's dropping his Tide bottles full of beer along the way. But yeah, we saw a guy and he was probably honestly just a local. All these little villages that we were running across in the theater we were in, they were displaced. There was nobody there, and we'd kind of set up shop. We'd work there for a day or two, and then we'd push forward again. And as we were setting up, we spotted, a Syrian kind of working in a couple buildings, getting closer and closer to us. And myself and one of the other guys that was there with us rounded the corner, and he took off running. And I immediately unclipped the dog, sent the dog. He hit a few alleyways, and by the time, we worked slow. There were bombs everywhere. So we systematically started clearing our way through this village. Dog off leash, but dog, still giving a blind eye to us every now and then. So only working like 2 or 3 kilometers ahead of us. By the time we made it to the village, this guy's 400 or 500 meters across the field, and I wasn't about to push my dog that far. He wasn't worth it. Air already had eyes on him at that point. So I recalled my dog, got my dog back, and we continued the mission.
How many different, I know you're talking about that one DevGru EOD guy. How many different EOD guys did you end up deploying with or working with through the time?
Through that deployment, or through
just in general, just your whole time as a handler?
Quite a few. Mostly my experience is mostly with naval EOD. Mm-hmm. And I can honestly say almost every EOD guy I've worked with has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
And had a great working relationship with the Canine.
Did you have to, the reason I ask is, so when I was out with Cobra, I had team 1, 2 dogs, 2 platoons, 2 different EOD guys, and we had to work up 2 different SOPs based on that EOD guy and the way he liked to do it. Did you find that, or was everybody kind of on the same page?
No, we were kind of on the same page. As a matter of fact, the guy I was working with, the last guy I worked with, Dev, almost deferred to me as to how we were going to start a clear, because he understood enough, he'd been around enough to know that everything I did had to be based off a wind call. So I was starting to clear, and we essentially, if I was starting on the west end of wherever we were clearing, he was going to go ahead and start on the east end, and we were just going to cross clear. So by the time we finished, we had a double clear across the perimeter. He's done his checks, I've done my checks. We either give a thumbs up, or I'm marking stuff along the way, or he's marking stuff along the way. So
did you ever have any finds that you weren't looking, and you got that tug, that pull from the dog, and you're like, oh shit, one of them deals?
Yeah, I've had a couple hard behavior change where a dog starts dragging around the corner. Typically what I would do if I'm on a 30, knowing the size of the explosives that we were in there, if I could discern, let's say, I'm in the middle of a field and there's only a couple buildings or a car, and that dog throws that hard behavior change, that's enough for me at that point. So I would, somewhere along the route or someone behind me, have them do a drop hide so that I could give my dog a reward on the way mm-hmm. back. So I just, increase that ratio there, and the dog hits it, and I'm just rewarding on the way back on the drop hide somewhere, instead of letting the dog go to the final response on whatever's real down the line. We did have one in particular that we went into a building. They wanted to occupy it as a command and control outpost. And immediate change of behavior. I'd never seen it in this dog before. She was essentially climbing the walls in here. Pulled her back out, tried to get a good reset. Clear her nasals, push her back in again, same behavior, climbing the walls, but never specifically in one area, never concentrating in one area. And we went through, put the dog up, went through, did the deliberate clear through this building, took like 2 hours. The guys are still in the truck waiting on us, getting pissed, getting more and more pissed. Are we clear? Or are we not clear? EOD is giving a thumbs up. We're good. I'm telling everyone we're not good. He's kind of still deferring to me. He's like, it's your call. And I'm like, well, if it's my call, I'm going to say no. I trust my dog. She's been spot on this entire deployment. And as we were leaving, I guess some local had pulled a rocket booster out of the tube. and was using it to light fires inside this building, and it was being used as a door wedge to prop a door open, and it looked just like it looked like a candlestick. Like if EOD wouldn't have found it, I never would have known what it was. But I guess the area was so permeated that she could never, hone in on the strongest concentration of odor. So that was probably the strangest find that I've had.
Fucking crazy. One of my buddies that was a handler, and one of the ranger handlers talked about it. They found a weapons cache that was covered up by a trap door, and the dog went in and she sat in the middle of the room, and he was like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, stop that, come out here." And he sent her in like 3 times. He's like, "I don't know, like what?" He was like, something was in there and what they thought. And so the UOD guys came back after the fact. They're like, "Oh no, we found like 600 pounds of," they wasn't alive, but they were like, "We found like 600 pounds of HME under the fucking floor." And he's like, "Oh, that makes sense." So, man, that's crazy. Using a rocket booster to light fires.
And as a door jam. I was kind
of adapt, I guess. Fuck. Who knows? Holy shit.
So, squatty potty.
Yeah. So you come back to the U.S. You go back to Von Lake to get your second dog. And this is where you come in contact with Davis.
Yeah, Josh David. Yeah.
Yeah, or Jay David. Yeah, Josh. So Davis. So tell me a little bit about. So allegedly, in near Von Lake, there's a strip club.
Rumor has it.
Yeah. So you don't want to leave, or you don't want to drive, but so and this is one of the other stories where I I'll let you tell it.
Yeah, so this was actually prior to going on that deployment, but yeah, same premise. So I actually went to the Legion one night. It was a weekend, and the Legion in outside of Kokomo, Indiana, had a open table Hold'em tournament, and I love playing Hold'em. So
me too.
I went to the Legion, sat down at the table, started playing, and about 6 beers later, I'm off the tables finally, and realized I couldn't drive home, didn't want to drive home. We're in the middle of nowhere, Indiana. There's no Uber. There's like one cab that works the 4 towns around us. So I ended up just sending a mass blast text to all the guys back in the barracks or hotel, Von Lake Hotel. And Josh and his buddies are the only ones that got back with me, and they were like, "Yeah, we're on the way out. We can pick you up, and you just go out with us." And they were on the way to the strip club, so I ended up going to the strip club with these guys that night. And one of the guys that was there, one of Josh's buddies, and if he's listening to this, if you listen to this, I love you, man. But you deserve what was coming to you. So, so we're in there, we're in the strip club, and this guy, one guy in particular, he's gotten like 7 or 8 lap dances in a row. And I don't know if he's just so drunk he's just so drunk that he doesn't know what's going on, or if he's never been to a strip club before and doesn't understand that every song is $25 or $20 or whatever.
He's getting married. He thinks he thinks she likes him.
Yeah. Well, she worked him. So anyways, it's almost closing time, and he owes the stripper like $300. And so he's arguing with her, and of course now the bouncers are involved. So we're all involved, and it's about to turn into a shit show. I'm about half sober at this point because I stopped drinking hours and hours ago. So I step in, pull some money out. I pay the stripper just so we don't get in trouble. I get him outside. And as soon as we get outside, he pulls a lot of cash out of his pocket, and he's laughing about how he didn't have to pay the stripper. So I proceed to take the money out of his hand, count my 300 out, and give him the change back. And then he proceeds to say that I'm robbing him, bows up on me, and then gets knocked out as the cab's pulling up and shoved in the back of the cab on top of Josh to baby him on the way back to the barracks. So I think that's the story you were referencing.
Yes.
Probably. Yes.
And if you follow Josh's social media, more than likely he had his shirt up and showing his abs and was basically topless at the strip club himself, probably.
And combing his hair.
Yes. Oh, just over here or whatever he's got going on. So All right, we're gonna end here because I want to have you back on because we have more dogs and more things to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're not trying to be Joe Rogan with 3.5-hour episodes. So, real quick, what are you doing now?
So I have stepped away from military, law enforcement, defense contract altogether. When I retired, I got out. I went over to Griffin Group. Ted's well aware of this. I think you are too. So I got brought on to help stand up the Canine program over there. It really never lifted, took off because of sequestration. Then continuing resolution kind of stomped on us. And then COVID hit. Like I had my first few classes on the books for programs that I'd written with some of the MP units around Bragg and some other places. And then COVID kind of stomped them out. And then the riots kicked up. So all the MPs had to get pulled all over the globe. And then we sold the company. We were successful. We sold back in December and I took my proceeds. I was looking at areas that weren't affected by COVID, kind of seemed like they were immune to it. Construction seemed like it was where it was at. I'm not a general contractor. I don't know how to build. So I stood up a demolition crew and I'm running a couple trucks, a couple demolition crews, and we're about to start getting into logistics and running long trucks. So I moved out to the middle of nowhere. I own a couple acres. My closest neighbor's like 2 miles away. Just cleared a lot for a bunch of heavy equipment. And then that's what we're doing. We're running demolition and logistics on a daily basis. And it kind of seems like the dog community still tries to pull me back in on a weekly basis. You were talking about Scotty earlier. Scotty calls me quite a bit, you know, trying to get me to come up there and help them out. Good buddy of mine, phenomenal kennel up there. Actually, Mr. Putnam hit me up probably about a month ago asking me if I wanted to gig to be the master trainer, quote unquote master trainer over at Fifth Group. And I immediately turned it down because I knew if I thought about it long and hard, I would probably say yes.
You'd
and
be there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really want to see this through. But you know, hopefully if time slows down, I can still piddle with it and play with dogs.
Who you been petting there the whole time?
This is actually Jessica Kelly's dog. Kitty is her name. She's half Malinois, half nanny dog, and probably one of the most docile dogs in the world.
Good size, nice looking dog.
Yeah, she is beautiful.
We like stripey though. Ted and I are partial to some stripey dogs there.
Yeah,
I like it. Well, man, I loved having you, and we've been trying to get this. Like I said, we'd like to get you back on for another one. Kind of pick up where we left off with after you knock this fool out in the parking lot of the strip club, and then throw. That's the best. Knock your boy out, throw him in the car. You idiot. Let's go.
Yeah.
The strip club you should have stayed at the Legion and just played poker.
Yeah, I should have.
Yeah, I'm going to buy back in. So, I know you're not a big social media guy, or are you now with the new business?
Yeah, my business is definitely on there. I mean, it's nothing dog related, so I definitely don't want to try to throw a plug and demolition on this. But yeah, I'm on social. I do have a personal Facebook page because you have to have it to have the business page. So, you know, you guys obviously hit me up, and I'll follow you guys. I'm still a Patreon member, so I still follow the podcast.
I put up a new video today on Patreon. As a matter of fact, I don't know if they notify you guys of that, but yeah, put it up. Yeah. So, Ted, what about you? Like, where are you at?
We are at Torchlight Canine, letter K number 9, and Torchlight Pets on the Instagrams and the Facebook. I am on Instagram, Ted_Summers. And that's basically dog stuff. I mean, it's work. And then, of course, HRD Police Canine. The next one is in August in Billings, Montana. It's actually full. It's going to be fairly large. They had a schedule change, by the way. So if you're listening to this, you're going to be there. We're going to be at the Yellowstone Sheriff's Office, Yellowstone County, I think is what it is, Sheriff's Office first day. So that'll be cool. Montana is far, and it's like almost in Canada. It's way far. So, well, yeah. Thankfully, we're going to go in August, and I think we've just confirmed one for January 31st through February 2nd in South San Francisco.
With the boys from Trident Canine Solutions.
Yep, they are hosting us at Sheriff's Office, or that city is. So for sure. I think we lost Eric, but Travis, man, this has been fucking awesome. I appreciate it coming on. yeah, it's been awesome. Like Derek said, we'll have to have you back on for sure, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'd love to come back on, and I appreciate you guys having me. I'm glad we finally got to do it.
Yeah, for sure.